It is all day. Once again, welcome to this. I'm Rob Olson in for Amy-Hockert again today, and we've got a packed couple hours. It's going to go pretty quick. Here is what is on tap today. There's some live events that we're following. Of course, Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell will be given an update ahead of the on the team, on the preparations ahead of the border battle this Sunday. Going to be a fun one, taking on the Packers, which of course Amber will be intently watching as well. She also has an eye, though, intently watching D.C. today, watching for any movement in the White House on the release of the Epstein files after the votes in Congress yesterday. Also, a couple of interesting Senate hearings going on today, including one on ICE, another one on air travel safety and the impacts of the recent government shutdown. We got a lot of live guests on tap as well. We're going to be talking about the THC ban, the hemp-derived THC ban, essentially a ban. It's a severe limitation that was part of the recent budget bill that ended the shutdown. But another side of this today is we're hearing from an addiction recovery specialist and their concerns about the booming THC industry. Also, we're going to be talking about grants available for urban farming. Urban farming, it's basically like farmers market type farming, but who can apply for it? How much money can you get? What's that money to be used for? We're also going to be welcoming the Bloomington Police Chief, Booker T. Hodges. He'll be coming in here to talk about the sex sting Operation Creep that he had a news conference about yesterday. We've got some other topics to discuss with him as well. Also, we're going to be joined by a former immigration agent who will be discussing his views, his interpretation, his thoughts on yesterday's raid in St. Paul. Others across the country. Has this type of secrecy on that job always been standard? Is anything different playing out now than from what he saw during his days? We will find out about that. But up first, we are of course still waiting to learn more from ICE, from federal authorities, about the immigration raid that we covered yesterday in St. Paul. So what do we know so far? Well, ICE said they were carrying out a search warrant at Brotex Industries in St. Paul is part of a criminal investigation, which remains ongoing. We don't know what type of investigation that was, what type of criminal conduct they're looking into, exactly the parameters of that. We're told that protesters were tipped off, and there when agents arrived, they then clashed with the operation. Of course, we saw that video. Chemical spray used on protesters. A city council member there told us yesterday some people were being thrown to the ground. Some of that we saw on video as well. And she said she saw as many as 3 people being detained by ICE and 1 protester being arrested. Now, ICE officials, they haven't confirmed any details about the arrests as of yet. And again, any details on that ongoing criminal investigation. Meantime, though, tensions and fear do remain high. The Immigrant Defense Network hosting a vigil and a news conference at the place where this raid happened yesterday. That vigil began about 9 o'clock this morning at Brotex Industries. There you see the crowd that gathered for that. They were saying that federal agents assaulted people for exercising their constitutional right to peacefully witness and question government operations. Of course, we saw that become then more of a lot of close contact between those folks and the agents that were out there. Now, one of the speakers at the vigil this morning was the St. Paul mayor-elect, Kali Herr. Here's a bit of what she had to say.
It's hard for me to stand in front of you here because I think that I'm standing here as a mayor-elect or a previous state representative, but I do not. I stand here in front of you as a refugee who came to this country, as somebody who has stood up to defend our undocumented communities and received huge backlash for wanting to make sure that they had the health care that they deserved. And now to sit here as the mayor-elect and watch this happen and unfold in our city, I want you all to know that I am standing with you, not as somebody who is in government, but as somebody who is from an impacted community, who has watched people from my own community who are American citizens get detained by ICE and held for days until they could prove that they were American citizens. When that happens to our communities, it is not just that they were detained and released, that they lose jobs from not being able to go to them, that their families that relied on them cannot, the children who needed their parents to be there to give them transportation to school do not have them, that there are huge ripple effects to what happens when our families are targeted in this way. Yesterday, as this was all happening, I was with all of you. I was trying to also find out what was happening because I do not get advance notice as to what is happening. And so I want you to be assured that I was in close communication with our law enforcement, our SPPD, to try to figure out what was happening and unfolding on the ground as well. Everyone deserves to feel safe where they live, and there are real national security threats that the federal administration is responsible for addressing. But flooding our neighborhoods with ICE and other federal agents only heightens tensions on the ground rather than calming it. We need clear, timely information from federal agencies so that the panic doesn't take over and rumors don't spread. When communities are kept in the dark, fear fills the gaps and the uncertainty ripples across our city. And this fear is real because we have seen what has happened. Our communities torn apart. They are feeding into that. We must not let that happen. You know, we federal agents were wearing gears labeled as police, which is not standard issue for our St. Paul Police Department. And they were not involved in any way in this enforcement action. SPPD works hard to keep our communities safe. When federal agents mislabel themselves, it creates confusion, undermines trust, and raises fundamental questions about who those officers really are. That was one of the first things when I saw police written on these uniforms. I knew that those were not SPPDs, but our community doesn't know that. And we need to continue to have trust with our law enforcement entities. We cannot let them create confusion for all of us. Any federal agent operating in our city should be clearly identified both by name and agency.
Yeah, and we did see some of those agents out there yesterday who did have clear identification, whether it was FBI or Homeland Security investigations, but she raises concerns that some simply say police on them, and that could lead to confusion amongst the community members who are gathering there. Coming up in about an hour, we're going to get some insight from a longtime immigration enforcement official, retired from that job, though, for some time now as well. We're going to talk about, have ICE agents always worn masks during operations in the past? Is this something new? Has it always been standard to not alert local officials, whether it be City Hall or the police departments? That is coming up at about 1:15 or so, coming up later in All Day. President Trump expected to sign the bill any time now. It's landed on his desk anyway, that forces the Justice Department to release all its files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, both the House and the Senate yesterday overwhelmingly passed the bill to release those files, which, again, the release of all files, all communications related to Epstein, that's supposed to happen within 30 days. So we may not see the release, of course, immediately once that is signed, but the clock starts ticking for that. And any information about the investigation into his death in federal prison, that's supposed to be revealed as well. There'll be some redactions, of course, to protect whether it's inside investigative data that could be harmful to the ongoing investigation, certainly to protect victims that are named in this. The bill would allow the Justice Department to do that. So again, that does take some time because they don't want any embarrassment, reputational harm, political sensitivity. So if the president does sign this today or even within the week, the Epstein files would become public technically before Christmas. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi spoke about them this morning. Here's what she had to say.
We have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law and to have maximum transparency. Also, we will always encourage all victims to come forward.
What are the next steps, Madam Attorney General, for the DOJ regarding what we assume President Trump will sign into law with the Epstein files? Is this going to be on the Justice Department website? What are you doing here over the next 30 days as we understand it?
We will continue to follow the law with maximum transparency while protecting victims.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly the point that they want to make, is that they do have some information, and there's a lot of files that they need to redact out anything that protects investigation integrity and victims here. But again, we're keeping an eye on this to see if and when this is signed by the president ordering this release. All right, 10 minutes after the hour right now. One of the stories that we're working on today for later newscasts involves reporter Corin Hoggard. We want to check in with him. He's been digging into a pretty interesting story today. Embezzlement charges now against a co-founder of the THC company Crooked Beverage, accusing him of stealing tens of thousands of dollars to pay for things like a lot of purchases at some boutique stores. There's some apparently sex toys in this, and a college tuition payment. So what do we know? What are we following up on today?
Well, Rob, Kristen Schenk is one of the co-founders of Crooked Beverage, alongside a few other folks, including Ryan Winkler, who is a former House Majority Leader here in the Minnesota House. And Winkler basically told me that, he started looking into Schenk's bank management, so to speak, after they got a notice. So Schenk had an ex-wife. He owed her more than $300,000. And there were court findings that basically his income, wherever it was coming from, should be going to her, at least a portion of it. But according to the allegations here, Schenk created some letterhead and wrote out some notes. He pretended he was Chris Maddle, the pretty well-known defense attorney here locally, and had some folks convinced that they did not have to make payments to his ex-wife. But that is what kind of tipped off Winkler, and he looked into their bank accounts and everything. That's when he discovered tens of thousands of dollars, $75,000 plus, that they say was wrongfully taken from various accounts belonging to Crooked Beverage.
Yeah, and I read too that there was a Square account, that the payment system account, that was not transferred to the company accounts. Is that how I read that?
Yeah, that was a big chunk of it. It was $47,000 plus that was basically supposed to go to the company. There was a whole account set up for it where the Square money was supposed to go into the company account, and that never happened. And so there were, I think, 3 different ways or accounts that had kind of money taken away from them. And, Schenk was dismissed from the company. But as that happened is when he took allegedly the last, I believe, that $47,000. According to investigators, he told them that he was, I'm not going to use his language, but he was upset with the company and felt like they owed him that money.
Yeah, that's his defense that I've read, that he thinks that this is something that was justly his. And even though he took it, he felt that it was proper for him to take.
Yeah, and so I'm actually pretty close to his house right now, so I'm going to go knock on the door there and see if he'll give me that defense. But that is what some attorneys have filed in response to the charges against him so far.
Yeah, and charges now of was embezzlement, theft. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll let you get on with it then. Thanks, Corin, and we'll see what you come up with later tonight on Fox 9 News. All right. Appreciate it. Okay. Corin Hoggard working on that story for later today. I think we're going, oh yeah, here he comes. Here it comes, the peeps. Jared Piepenberg in now.
The comfy chairs.
Yeah, I know. It's so hard to get out of those over there on the side of the room. Talking late November weather, it's certainly a chill in the air today. Yeah. I mean, again, and it's nothing abnormal, but I feel like I can't get warm today.
No, I agree. Yeah, just I feel like I'm just waiting for that cold to set in like every day. So just mild weather just continues here with above average temps, and just like summing up the forecast, it's like.
There you go.
Like, it's like nothing going on. So.
I know you're kind of waiting for a storm to hit, so you have something to do.
What we are seeing is likely to be a cold snap. Looks like it's going to arrive really close to Thanksgiving next week. But in the meantime, ahead of that, like now through Tuesday, it's going to be above average almost every single day. their morning lows really don't look that bad either.
Above average by how much, though?
This weekend we could get around 50 or just above in some places. So I mean, we're talking almost 10 degrees above average.
Okay, well, we'll take that, I
That's
guess.
not too bad, yeah. So it is looking just to continue to stay mild here for like the next 7 days.
So continue to be a good time for people to go out and get Christmas lights up before it really plummets.
Yeah, I mean, there's barely any precipitation out there. I do have the radar loop up with this. It'll eventually go to this. So up north, I mean, it looks like a lot's going on, but it's not much at all. I mean,
Really?
we're talking like hundredths. It's not, a lot of this is not reaching the ground.
Oh, it's the stuff that shows up on radar,
so
but
it's like,
doesn't show up on,
And I was just looking at the DOT cameras earlier about an hour or two ago, and I mean, there's wet roads, but I mean, out here, it's just like, it looks like it kind of wants to do that, and there's some mist going on, but other than that, it's a pretty quiet day. I mean, there's our average high 40 and low of 26. So, yeah, really mild weather throughout the weekend, too, near 50 or just above.
That's going to be much like last weekend.
Yeah,
this weekend
exactly.
is going to be much like last
and
weekend.
It doesn't look like a whole lot of wind. There's no big pressure changes out there. So.
That's what I'm concerned about, because it looks like I'm going to get one more round of golf in this weekend. Last weekend I thought it was the end, and I'm like, okay, this is done, and it was really windy. And I'm done with this. I don't want to. This is not fun.
No, it isn't. You know, that always even if it's 45, 50, that you could feel that little bit of bite.
Well, it's not just that; it just makes it hard to play.
Well, I golfed in Bismarck and in Fargo, so I lived in some pretty windy areas. So it's like I always play in the wind. I always had something to blame it on. But mild weather now through Tuesday. Then it looks like we're going to turn colder. If you look at your Fox Night weather app, look at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's going to turn cold.
No, that's not good. But at least, you know, it's only cold impacting travel, not
it doesn't look like it's going to have much going on. We'll keep an eye on things. So.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it so much. All right. We're going to take a quick break, but a reminder, you can always email us here at allday@fox.com. We've got a pretty interesting interview coming up next about addiction and the concerns with the booming THC industry. We look at it from the other side. What are the risks? What are the hazards? What are the warning signs? That is coming up next here on All Day. All right, welcome back to All Day on this Wednesday. Rob Olson in for Amy Hockert again today. You know, another story that's certainly been making a lot of news is the potential severe limitation on hemp-derived THC products. We've heard from a number of businesses over the past week about how this national ban on hemp-derived THC products, or mostly a ban, it would limit the amounts pretty severely. And that was part of the budget bill that ended the government shutdown. That could hurt, maybe even end a lot of businesses that have really popped up over the last couple of years. But there's potentially another side to this story here. Current research suggests that maybe about 10% of those who begin using cannabis could become addicted. As many as 30% could develop some type of use disorder. So joining us now to discuss concerns here, Dr. Louis Zeidner, the CEO of EOSIS, which is formerly known as Meridian Behavioral Health, based in New Brighton. Changed the name earlier this year to reflect kind of your approach. I watched your video about, you know, the new dawn here. Thank you for joining us today, Doctor.
Thank you.
Is you've seen this boom of THC products, whether it be beverages or other things. What has been your concern as you've watched this and your experience with misuse or overuse of these products as they become more readily available?
You know, I think the biggest challenge is that there are no safe or unsafe drugs or alcohol. So I see people who are saying, you know, the literature is starting to say that alcohol is not safe. So I'm going to remove that from my diet, but I'm going to replace it with THC. And I'm not sure that's a good substitute. First off, you know, there's not a safe and an unsafe. But secondly, the same issues exist for THC that exist for alcohol or other drugs. And so people who are susceptible to misuse will have problems with THC in much the same way they would with alcohol.
What has then been your experience in your line of work? Have you seen a rise in addiction recovery, patients coming to you related and correlated that you can see to the rise of the availability of these products?
You know, I think as we make changes in our society, we need to look at how do we educate people, How do we give support for people who begin to develop problems? The broadest issue is not the drug or the alcohol. The broadest issue is how do we use it and when do we use it? And I think for some people, they're using it for social anxiety, or they're using it to wash away a bad day. And for those folks, it still becomes a problem. And we are seeing an increase in the use of THC, in part because there's an implied safety that comes with the legalization, which is not to say illegal use is not a problem, but both sides of that equation create messages to our culture.
All right. A large part of the warnings, too, historically about the use of THC is the effect on adolescent brains, the developing brain. As these products become, more prevalent, have they also become too easy for young people to obtain them?
Certainly, it's a growing issue, both with THC, but I would also add things that are readily available and not talked about much, like Kratom or 7-OH, other drugs that you can buy in most stores that we're seeing a large amount of overdoses, misuse, problems that arise from use, all of those sorts of things.
Okay, so I know Kratom is another one that we've heard talk about, because that is a natural plant-derived thing that is not regulated, is it?
It's not. And I think that's part of the problem. We spend a lot of time talking about whether THC should be regulated or unregulated, how alcohol should be regulated. But we need to look at all the substances and the ways in which they're coming into our culture and the ways in which people need support and education about their effects.
Okay. Proponents of THC, certainly the legalization and the proliferation here, will argue that they are not addictive in the way that other narcotics are, certainly not the way opioids are. But what is the difference? How do you explain that there still is an addictive risk to this versus some of the other narcotics out there?
I think you started this section by talking about 10 to 30%, depending on the number you want to look at, will have a problem as a result of their use. And so, when we talk about addiction, we talk about sometimes with opiates or alcohol that there's a withdrawal symptom that comes with stopping use. And we're not talking about that kind of withdrawal challenge with THC, but we are talking about problems that arise from use of those drugs. And so where they may not be addictive in a physical context where your body withdraws and has significant medical problems, they do have psychological withdrawal symptoms that take place, and those need to be talked about for THC, for alcohol, for many of the drugs we're talking about.
Right, so it doesn't, I know we talk about with opiates where it sort of rewires the pathways of the brain, and that affects the withdrawal and makes that craving where your body just feels like it needs it to feel normal. In this case, you're talking about a dependency because psychologically you just like the way it feels. Is that kind of the way you describe it?
I think it becomes the way I do things. It's the way I do bad days. It's the way I do good days. It's the way I have social engagements. So the way my friends get together is to get high. And so I think it becomes a pattern of life that becomes problematic. And then I would look at the consequences of that. So what happens as a result? I miss work, I miss school, I drive intoxicated and I get into an accident. All of those things are the second tier consequences of use.
Okay, the debate will continue now in the wake of the budget bill that ended the shutdown, that specifically lowered hemp-derived THC limits to 0.4 milligrams. That debate will continue because there's a lot of pushback from the industry, et cetera, because they worry that this could really devastate what's become a booming business. As that continues, what elements do you urge to be part of the conversation to come up with, the end result of wherever this debate leads?
I think when a product has a negative consequence for a subset of our population, there's a responsibility for those who supply that product to provide education, comprehensive education, not just, product specific, and then also access to services. So if we know that 10+% of our population who uses this drug legally will have a problem, then what's the manufacturer and the producer's responsibility to provide the education that goes with that, as well as the treatment that goes with that?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. If people want to learn more, if they have concerns too about maybe this use has become something that has affected their life, what do you suggest that they do?
You know, look us up on the internet, EOSIS Recovery. Happy to answer questions. We have 24/7 telephone answering line.
Okay. Dr. Louis Seidner with EOSIS, appreciate taking some time today. It's certainly a topic that is going to continue to be part of our conversation for a long time to come. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, there you go. It is pushing 12:30 now on this Wednesday. We are watching, of course, Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell will be addressing the media again coming up here maybe in about 15-20 minutes or so. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Gopher football also addressing the media ahead of their trip to the Windy City and the friendly confines of Wrigley Field. Yes, football in Wrigley Field, and it's going to be fun to watch that game as well in there. So those are things that are yet to come here today. Take a quick break right now, but a moment of zen as we head to break. These are the holiday lights at the University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. You're watching All Day on Fox 9. Watching Fox 9 all day on this Wednesday afternoon. Rob Olson in for Amy Hockert again today. This afternoon, community members invited to a holiday produce drive in St. Paul. It begins in about an hour. Volunteers from the neighborhood house will be distributing groceries, some winter gear, serving up lunch, hosting family activities all afternoon. They've done this before. It was successful. They're doing it again to certainly help people in a time of need. Lauren Andrago is at Wellstone Center, which is part of Neighborhood House, serving the immigrant, low-income, and senior communities in St. Paul for 125 years. My dad worked there briefly, too, at the end of his professional life. They've done fantastic work over there on the west side of St. Paul.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. We're right next to Burrito Mercado, if you know the spot. 1897 was when the neighborhood house opened here on the west side of St. Paul. Like you said, they've been serving refugee, immigrant communities, and really anyone who needs a helping hand. They have all sorts of resources, and starting today at 1:30, they're expecting over 200 families to come take place in this holiday food drive. So in addition to a whole frozen chicken, every family is going to get to walk through here and get all the produce they need for Thanksgiving dinner. We're talking sweet potatoes, carrots, cabbage, but I think that's spaghetti squash over there, potatoes. In addition, they've also given these emergency food boxes. These are packed up with a lot of staples, pantry items that'll last through the holiday and beyond. And here's something interesting that you don't normally see at every food drive. We've been covering these all fall, especially in the last month or so. They're getting culturally specific. So families are allowed to pick out whatever they need, whatever they like eating at home. We've got rice noodles here, bamboo shoots, all sorts of stuff, black-eyed peas, sardines, you name it. I want to introduce you to Janet Gracia. She's the president and CEO here at Neighborhood House. What a fantastic undertaking you guys have here today. Tell me a little bit about what people can expect if they show up this afternoon.
Okay, well, we love this event. We do over 30 fresh produce pickups every year. Wow. And what people can expect is a really welcoming environment. They don't have to fill out a lot of information. They just share their name, their zip code, and then they're allowed to shop for what they need to make sure that their families have nutritious food. So not only, you're seeing the pre-setup. Pretty soon this is all going to be bagged up. We'll even have this bagged up in really convenient bags for everyone. Once they go through this drive, volunteers will help them get things to their cars or help help them, help them however they can. Inside, they can learn more about all of the programming we do, because we do wraparound programming. If someone is facing food insecurity, they most likely have other needs as well.
Yeah. So you guys are helping with housing, with education. Tell me about some of the resources that you have inside that families can talk about today.
Okay. So we have all of our programs have a table that are featured. So our family centers, if you need help signing up for SNAP, if you need help signing up for MNsure, if you're just not sure how to register your kids for school or how to get referrals to bridging, or helping figure out, is this mail that I need to respond to or not respond to, helping people get diapers, formula, cleaning supplies, learning about the housing stability. Do they need emergency rental assistance? Our free preschool. So we have a free preschool and childcare for all of our adult education students. And most importantly, as we're standing outside today, we're finally feeling it's getting colder, right?
You can say that.
Yeah, so we have a winter gear room that we have every year. Wow. So coats for everyone in the family. So coats, snow pants, gloves, hats, mittens, boots. We do not accept donations of just regular clothing. We just can't support that with storage. But we have brand new items, gently used items. So today, in addition to getting all these great resources, learning about other resources, they can pick up some warm weather gear for their families. And we have the Right Hand Foundation, a family foundation here today, providing a hot meal to everyone that shows up.
Wow.
So
Wraparound indeed. And that's kind of what you said is the foundation of your work here at the Neighborhood House. Janet, we were talking earlier, we've been talking a lot about SNAP benefits and food insecurity across the country. We know those benefits have been restored, but I'm wondering what you are hearing from families in terms of food and food insecurity as we head into the holidays.
Okay. Well, we already know that people who are shopping at our markets and have SNAP benefits we're still having a hard time stretching that dollar and being able to make sure that they could feed their families. Parents are going without meals to feed their families. Seniors, we have a lot of seniors who take advantage of our support and services, and they're going without medications. There's also been changes. While SNAP was restored, there have been new restrictions put on SNAP, and so people are not perhaps getting the same amount of support that they had in the past. So that is a concern as well. And also thinking about the fact that just with the environment, with federal workers not getting checks for 6 to 8 weeks, people maybe not having a job, we're seeing more and more people needing the support, which has really impacted our food markets.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, from last year to this year, we've tripled our budget on food, and that was before the government shutdown. So we were already seeing a really a crisis. And I say hunger does not stop for that paperwork, right? It's a daily reminder that people want to make sure. I saw yesterday someone was shopping in our food market, and she sat down and her kids instantly opened the bag and bit into apples. And if you could have seen the smile on their faces I'm like, that's what we want. We want everyone to have that dignity and that support and that feeling of comfort to know. And that's what Neighborhood House has been, a place of hope for people to come to get those services, and we've been around for so long.
Yeah, and that's what I'm learning today here, Janet, and that's what I think is so special from the pop and the fresh produce, giving people that sense of humanity, like they're just going grocery shopping. It's not, just a box that you'd find at any food drive. On the flip side, you were telling me that in addition to this increase in need, you're also seeing an increase of people who are looking for a way to help, especially here locally on the West Side. Can you tell me a little bit of that? Because that feels really hopeful, I think, as we head into the holidays.
So I have just been so touched we've been putting out messages. We need your help. We need your support. We're not sustainable without our community. This is my kind of term I've come up with, neighbors helping neighbors, and I say it all the time. So I've put out things on social media. Yesterday, a friend showed up with a a carload of coats. We've had companies and organizations make donations. The pop that you showed just showed up from a vendor that just dropped off. Can you take all these pallets of pop? We want to give it to you. And right now we're going through a construction project to expand our programming because we've had such an increase in need in our community, and it's called Hope in Action. And so I think that just speaks. Our community is now activating, right? They're coming up and showing. And so by the end of June, we only have $2 million more to raise to hit our $25 million goal.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Janet, thank you so much for your time and being out here in the cold with me this afternoon. I really appreciate it. Okay, Rob, there, you heard it. 1:30 this afternoon. You're welcome to come to the neighborhood center, the neighborhood house, for this food drive. Coat drive, a hot meal. There will be kids' activities and all sorts of resources. And if they don't have the resource, they'll find the person who can help connect you to the resource. This is the Wellstone Center, as you said, just doing all sorts of stuff to help hundreds of families every day here on the west side of St. Paul.
I love that story about the kid biting into an apple and the look of joy on their face.
Yeah, they see the need here every single day. She gets to witness just the kind of impact that they're having on kids and adults here.
All right. Lauren, thank you so much. Stay warm out there. I know it's 40. It's not bad, but there's a chill in the air.
No, it's not bad.
No.
You want a hat and gloves. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to check some regional headlines now. Of course, we're keeping an eye on both the Gophers and the Vikings as they're meeting the media today to talk about their upcoming matches, one at Wrigley Field and the other one at Lambeau. We're going to check some regional headlines now, though, right now. And we begin about an hour east of Moorhead in Detroit Lakes, the DL. 2 teenage boys fell through thin ice on Straight Lake there. They were trying to ice fish. It's a little bit early for that. The DNR was able to break through the ice and rescue the two. They were a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old. They got them by boat. They were checked out by EMS. Were not injured, thankfully, but the sheriff's office, of course, advising everyone to stay off area lakes at this time. That ice is thin, if it's even there at all, but what is there is not much. We're going to head up to Duluth right now, where Fox 21 there reports that a person was trapped inside a van that erupted in flames early this morning. This was on East 8th Street. Now, they say, according to scanner reports, the person was rescued out of the burning van. 2 fire engines responded to that. It remains unclear how that fire began, if it spread to any homes nearby. The condition of the victim also at this point unknown, but rescued from that burning van. Okay, moving over to La Crosse, Wisconsin. The La Crosse Tribune reporting that Allegiant Airlines will begin 2 new nonstop flights from La Crosse beginning next year in 2026. One is a flight to Phoenix, Arizona that begins February 6th, and the other is a flight to Orlando, Florida, both nice southern warm destinations, but that one doesn't begin until May 21st. Now heading down to the southeast to Rochester, where a local bar is giving away Thanksgiving main dishes as trivia prizes. This is better than getting the Santa tie or with some of the things I've won at trivia. Santa or main dishes here. This Friday, the Douglas Saloon hosting trivia. The winners get to take home turkeys and hams. That trivia begins at 7:30 on Friday and is free to play. Good luck to all, because who doesn't want to win a turkey? I would say. It is 12:42 right now. Again, keeping an eye on the Vikings and the Gophers. We will dip into those comments when we can. Certainly as soon as Kevin O'Connell takes a podium today to talk about meeting the Packers on this big border battle. Right now, we're going to head to a quick break here on All Day, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Fox 9 All Day. It is 1:45, and this is when Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell is scheduled to meet the media, but we know how these go, Amber.
Never on time.
Never on time. And again, it's not because he's irresponsible.
He's just a busy guy.
He's got a lot of stuff going on, you know, during the season. They've got a lot of stuff going on year-round, but during the season, you can imagine. I'd love to see what his calendar looks like for a typical day. Oh, and here he is. Look at that.
Oh my God, incredible timing. Okay, let's listen in.
Good afternoon, guys. Big opportunity for our team. Really good energy in the building today. We'll hit the practice field and be outside all 3 days this week, kind of getting ready for the surface, ready for the weather, the elements, things like that. NFC North going to Lambeau. Always a very, very important game for the Minnesota Vikings, and it is absolutely one this week. And I know our guys are excited to get to work on the field this week, and we'll be ready to roll when we head to Lambeau.
Kevin,
just one update. You know, Jonathan Grenard will work off to the side today, and we'll update you guys on kind of where he's at moving into tomorrow and Friday, and then Ryan Kelly should be a full participant.
Okay, just on Michael Parsons, how have you seen them use him from just different positions and different types of ways that they put him up front?
Yeah, he's lining up everywhere. On first and second down, he'll be on both sides. He'll move around sometimes within a drive, so you really can't have like an exact beat on where he's going to be. And really the important part of that is, you know, whatever side he lines up on, Rashawn Gary lines up on the other side. And they've got Van Ness potentially coming back as well, who's a talented young player. So it's obviously a focal point and something we've got to be aware of to have those kind of impact players on the edges. But then on third down, he could be rushing inside. He could be lined up, you know, off the ball. You got to be ready and prepare. Schematically is one thing, but then, you know, all five of those guys up front understanding that it may be my, you know, tough down to fight through, depending on, you know, where they want to dictate, you know, from a standpoint of their alignments. So it's definitely something we're talking about and trying to prepare our guys for.
What have you thought about Jordan Love's development over the years?
Yeah, I think, you know, the things that jump out are just he's a very, very good thrower of the football, and it's something that he came out of Utah State like that. It was just a question of, you know, how accurate could he be snap in and snap out, and what would the rhythm of a game look like. Were really what I always thought, you know, when he was coming out. But I really liked him studying his tape and the high. He can make some high level difficulty throws, and then what I think he's really found is a really good fit in Matt's offense. They're explosive. They've got a very deep receiving core. Tight ends, I know they have an injury at the position right now to Tucker, but you know, they've really made a really, you know, pretty interesting transition to the marriage of running the pass and some of the things that they've done. Matt's done it at a high level for a long time, but a little bit different than kind of the traditional way of doing it all the time, where they're incorporating maybe some more gun runs, they're incorporating some RPOs, some things that Jordan's obviously very comfortable doing, but when push comes to shove, he's making, if you let him sit back there clean in the pocket all day, he's going to make every throw available. So it's one of those things where you're trying to, much like a lot of the quarterbacks in our division, you're trying to see, you know, how many times you can move him off the spot, eliminate some of the easy departures from the pocket where he can be a real problem with his athleticism and ability to throw on the run. And I think they really understand, you know, either some players that, you know, previously played with Aaron, who is maybe as good of anybody in the scramble drill setting, but those principles have been in place for a long time in that offense, and Jordan was obviously there developing, watching it very closely for some of his early years, and they picked up right where that Aaron kind of left off. And then the other element is just the ways they steal plays, whether it's rushing the ball from a second to third down when you're trying to sub and they get a free play, quick counts, different things that they kind of have tools that give them an advantage. Even if it's just on one snap, it could be an explosive. We've seen that this year throughout the tape of them finding those explosives where there's also a penalty on the field for 12 guys on the field. So we got to be totally totally locked in from a substitution when we can. Are they going to go to the ball? How great can we be getting aligned quickly, communicating, and then, playing out the snap from there.
Kevin, with JJ's mechanics specifically, sometimes we've seen kind of the back leg come around and whip up a little bit. Is that something that you've seen quarterbacks be successful with, or is that something you ideally don't want to see?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent. I think the violent leg whip, can sometimes be, depending on where guys generate their natural power from. You can see some of that just as the ultimate kind of disassociation between the lower and upper half that creates the torque that some guys put a lot of revolutions on the ball, and that would definitely be the category I would put JJ in. Now, I also believe very strongly that he doesn't necessarily always need that, and those 80-85% throws that have plenty of velocity on them, but also are the location seems to be better. The friendliness of throwing more runners balls for guys for the ability to have some run after catch. And then just to progress in rhythm from a little bit more comfortable base, while not taking up too much space in the pocket is also, part of it. But I think it's something that some throwers, historically you've seen them do it. But to me, it's the times where it can be credited due to a lack of foundation and balance more so than the torque that he's generating, and I think there's a middle ground there that we're working towards, and we've seen from a kind of a smooth rhythm standpoint that I think is what we're hunting a little bit more on a snap-to-snap basis.
Kevin, when you talk about him in terms of pocket presence, climbing the pocket and keeping space, dealing with messy pockets, how do you work on that in practice when guys in a no-contact jersey? How easy is it to simulate those things and put them in settings where he can get something realistic?
Yeah, all of our team periods, the rush is full go. We're blocking games, we're handling pressures, and guys know they have to stay off the quarterback, but we want it to feel as real as you possibly can. The getting hit in those messy pockets are kind of the byproduct of the games, but the feel of what it feels like, and every game in the NFL just is going to be the messy pocket, and the guys that have really excelled. I was talking to Tom Brady about this last week when we got a chance to catch up before the game. It's a messy pocket doesn't necessarily mean it's a broken pocket, and your ability to kind of in place, in the comfort or finding that safe space within the pocket to exhaust that 1 to 1.5 more seconds while a pattern or a play expresses itself is kind of what made him the greatest of all time doing it. He wasn't, how many more times are we going to show his 40-yard dash from the combine? What we need to show is the pocket movement within a progression, and he's working 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and an ability to throw the ball anywhere at any time based upon his lower half kind of being his guiding force. So I think it's much more, JJ's shown the athleticism to impact games out of the pocket with his legs, but it's much more that controlled, harnessed athleticism to be able to keep that athletic base progressing through a down without needing to move too far up into trouble, which can sometimes be the back of a lineman trying to, post single block, a 3 technique, or the way a pressure might, end up, articulating. It's one of those things where now it's a linebacker getting picked up by Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones or C.J. Ham, and you're protected, but it could be considered messy. But those are winning downs by his teammates that we've got to equal that with a winning down out of the quarterback.
The lack of takeaways. I know you can't just chalk it up to bad luck. But the last 4 or 5 games, there have been balls on the ground. There have been balls tipped up in the air. They just seem to keep going back to the offense. Do you look at it and do you say it's got to come around? Or, I know forcing turnovers is a skill. Are there things you're asking guys to do more of to try to prompt it?
I think it's just, I think our tackling has been really good the last few games. I think our knockback and the principles of stopping the run, getting people into longer yardage situations, and then getting getting the down and distance on your side. And then it's about tying in the disguise with the push of the pocket and trying to disrupt the quarterback and see if you can create some of those opportunities that maybe weren't there at times throughout the year. So we're trying to do a little bit more of that. We're coaching every single day, and our guys are some of the best in the league at punching at the football, hammering, raking. It's just been a matter of when we have gotten it out. There was a couple snaps last week where the ball's loose and funny bounce of the ball. Wes Phillips knows the shape of a football. He always says it to me, but I forget what he says. Got to ask the doctor. But it is a funny shaped ball, and it will bounce differently. You just got to keep creating those ops. I showed the team examples of us doing that today, not very long ago, of just close-up views of just surgical punches, purple hats to the ball in population. So when it does come out, maybe in the kicking game, you can punch one of those things out and change the game.
With Ryan Kelly, did you go into this planning to exhaust the full 21 days, or are you prepared that if things go well this week, you can come back?
I think the plan, more so than the 21 days, Kevin, was the time from when we put him on IR to when we activated that window opening up, of just making sure that we had exhausted the required time to where Ryan was, essentially banging down the door to get back on the field. And then we wanted to let him go through a full practice week, or at least build up to the type of work that would allow him to feel really good coming into this week to hopefully then have another good week, and then we can make a determination later this week. But he's in a great spot. He's going to be fully participating, and as the week goes on, I'll let you guys know what his availability for Sunday looks like. But excited to have him back on the field with our guys for sure.
Not to walk with a guy who has had multiple concussions.
Well, I think what you do is you defer first and foremost to not only the medical professionals that work with our team, but we've sought outside resources as well, much like we do in a lot of these circumstances. And you're just looking for green light after green light after green light. And I think Sunday will have been 8 weeks since the Pittsburgh game. So I feel like there's been the proper amount of time. We've taken a look at every layer of equipment. Probably going to see him wearing a Guardian cap. I believe he's got a different helmet. You're trying to do all the things that you can do to make sure you eliminate any of the controllables, and then this game is what it is. And Ryan Kelly loves playing football. He's been really darn good at it for a long time, and is itching to get back out there. And once the medical side, you've exhausted the equipment side, and you're really kind of looking at then anything fundamentals and technique-wise to help him. We've kind of talked about as well. But like I said, he's been playing for a really long time at a really high level. So it's kind of one of those things that it's a process that involves a lot of things, and I just want to make sure from my chair we're exhausting every avenue to make sure that we've controlled what we can from a timing and all the different things I just listed. And then if all systems are go and we're greenlit to go, let's attack this thing together with no kind of worry, and let him go play football, which is what he wants to do. We just have to continue to finish off this process the way it started and has maintained throughout.
Buster? Kevin, with Donovan Jackson, when you guys drafted him, you talked about his personality, his intelligence. How have you seen that sort of manifest itself in his growth here?
Yeah, I think, you look at how he dealt with the wrist injury, and then able to come back, beat the timeline on that. Maybe not as full of a participant, as you would want a young player to be. And he's able to go out and get the reps in games and show immediate improvement on things. He's an ascending young player. I thought he had one of his better games last week, and he's played really consistent for us all year long. And the best part about him is if something gets him, or he gets beat on something, or he's got to be a little, altering to his technique in the run game or the pass game, he does it, and doesn't need Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He'll do it in game. He's a great communicator. He's played next to a few guys now throughout the year on that offensive line, and it has really been both him and Will have been really, kind of guys that if they weren't as consistent as they were, I don't know necessarily if we'd be where we are now, or even able to get through some of the adversity we have. Last one. That's how I know I talk too much.
Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell making a joke there at the end. That's how I know I talk too much, because there were no more questions for him by the end of that. But he spoke for about 15 minutes, giving an update on injuries, and then certainly talking a lot more about quarterback J.J. McCarthy as they continue to work on his mechanics, both his throwing mechanics and his pocket mechanics as he's working through that. So certainly a lot to look ahead to for this weekend's border battle with the Green Bay Packers. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to check headlines next, and a couple of pretty interesting guests coming up here over the next hour. Actually, is a lot of topics still to talk about today. We'll be right back. You're watching All Day on Fox 9. Oh, a live look at Lambeau. Look at that. Amber's happy place for sure. It's going to be fun there this weekend, I hope. Well, it'll be fun for somebody. Yeah, somebody will enjoy it. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 9 All Day. Again, Rob Olson in for Amy Hockert on this gray Wednesday afternoon, but it is November, so this is what we deal with here. We have a couple of headlines to hit here before we get to our next conversation. Among them, we are still waiting to learn more about the immigration raid that occurred yesterday morning in St. Paul. So what do we know so far? Well, according to ICE, they were carrying out a search warrant at Brotex Industries as part of a criminal investigation which remains ongoing. We don't know, again, though, any more details about what type of criminal activity they were investigating. We are told that protesters were tipped off. Somebody saw some people gathering at a nearby park. They were then there when agents arrived, and then after a time began clashing with the operation as it was being carried out. Chemical spray was used on protesters. A city council member there who spoke to us yesterday on this program said they saw people being thrown to the ground. You could see that in some of the videos posted from the scene as well. And she said she saw as many as 3 people being detained by ICE and 1 protester arrested. ICE officials haven't confirmed yet any details about the arrests. Meantime, this morning, as tensions and fear do remain high among some community members, the Immigrant Defense Network hosted a vigil, a news conference, at the place where that raid happened. That vigil began around 9 o'clock this morning, followed by a number of speakers who say that federal agents assaulted people for simply exercising their constitutional right to peacefully witness and question government actions. Of course, we did see some of that more close conflict come into place as some of that then physical confrontation then occurred as they were trying to block vehicles from leaving. In about 15 minutes, we're going to get some insight from a longtime immigration enforcement official who is now retired from that job. But among the conversation, to put some historical context in it and maybe contrast that with some recent history, ICE agents always worn masks during operations like this. Has it been standard to not alert local officials, such as the police departments or the mayor, city council, etc.? We're going to get into all that in a conversation coming up here in about 10 minutes. President Trump, meantime, expected to sign a bill any time, at least it's been sent to him, to force the Justice Department to release its files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Yesterday, both the House and Senate overwhelmingly passed the bill to release the Epstein files, forcing the release of all files and communications related to Epstein within 30 days, along with any information about the investigation into his death in federal prison. But again, it would allow the Justice Department to redact information about Epstein's victims, which is appropriate, or any continuing federal investigations, something that might jeopardize something that is ongoing. But they can't redact information due to embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. Again, there's a 30-day deadline here. That clock starts ticking when the president signs it. So if he signs it today, or even within the week, those files would then become public. before Christmas. All right, turning topics now here to something local that affects people who are, this is something we've seen boom as well. More people doing farming in their backyards in their urban areas or near urban areas. Some of those bringing them to farmers markets. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture is trying to help those who farm and sell what they grow in urban areas. Late last week, opening up grants for urban farms to make conservation-focused improvements. So joining us now, Emily Toner, a grant specialist with the Department of Agriculture, to tell us more. These are called mini grants. Emily, can you explain who these mini grants is designed to help and how it can help them?
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for taking time to have us here. My name is Emily Toner from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and we have just opened a new program called the Urban Farm Conservation Mini Grant, which is an opportunity for people growing or selling in the urban setting to receive up to $5,000 of support to improve conservation practices on their farm. So conservation practices include things that help improve the soil health. We know urban farmers have a lot of different types of soil and soil challenges that they could be working with. It can also help them manage their water more efficiently. They can purchase things like drip irrigation systems or collect rainwater to help grow their crops. And it can also do things like help them protect wildlife and plant things for pollinators and just make it a more sustainable environment. The farms that are eligible to apply are commercial urban farms. So it is farms that are growing to sell. One important thing to notice is that our definition of sell does include donation. So people that are growing to donate and have donated at least $1,000 or more in a year can qualify for this grant.
What is the scope of this? I mean, in terms of the number of urban farmers out there, and I see you identify that as being near an area of at least 5,000 people, which we don't think of as necessarily urban, but that's the definition here. What is the scope of how many people are out there that are selling food or growing food in an urban farm setting and selling it then? Obviously farmers markets are very popular and we see so many of them. Who are these people, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know when we talk about farms, the term urban farm can almost seem, like a paradox, but there are a lot of people growing and selling in the urban setting. Minnesota has over 400 farmers markets. We think of maybe the metro area when we say urban, but as you said, the definition for this grant program is cities with 5,000 people or more. So anybody that would be growing in that city or selling products directly to consumers in that city could be eligible. And interesting to note that according to the USDA Ag Census, which surveys all the farms in Minnesota's every few years, 5% of our farms sell directly to consumers. So that's actually over 3,000 farms around the state that do that. And we also, we often think of larger scale farms, but in that census, actually about 20,000 farms are 49 acres or less, and 4,000 farms are 9 acres or less. So there are a lot of smaller farms and farms that are selling directly into urban markets like farmers markets around the state.
And what kind of produce or other products are they selling and growing and selling?
Yeah, all sorts of things. And it's actually not even just limited to crops. It can be livestock, eggs, things like that, honey, maple syrup. But there is a lot of fruits and vegetables, what we could call specialty crops out there. And yeah, tons of things that really support food access for people, especially in urban settings where, it could be a food desert. And these are sources of fresh food that are going straight into communities.
And these mini grants, though, again, designed to be used specifically for conservation issues. What is the need there? I mean, what kind of issues do you come across with these smaller farms to try to make conservation efforts to keep basically the health of the soil, et cetera, in place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this grant is funded through the Natural Resources Conservation Service. So that's part of why the emphasis is on conservation. And urban farms definitely have a lot of work to do to conserve and protect our urban soils, which have seen so many different uses. Urban soils can be compacted, polluted, all different things. So to have people that are growing plants and protecting the health of our urban soils is really helpful and important. So this grant can help people protect and improve urban soil, but the conservation does go beyond that. It can be water management. People can collect rainwater, which we know, sewage systems are kind of getting overwhelmed with rain overflow. Well, when you have urban spaces that can soak up rainwater and reuse it to grow plants, it's a really positive thing. So people could do something like that with these grants as well.
So has there been these grants come because has there been a concern about the soil quality, water quality, et cetera, from the number of farms, urban farms that are out there?
Well, soil quality is definitely a concern across the board for urban farms. And one of the things that you can do with this grant is also test your soil. You can pay for equipment and supplies, but you can also pay for services. So if people want to test their soil that they're growing in to check for nutrient levels or different potential contaminants, they could do that as well. And you can also do things like build composting on site. So waste management can be part of conservation as well. So farms can actually collect and reuse some of the plant material that would be waste at the end of the season by building a composting system.
Okay, well, tell us more. Again, up to $5,000 in this mini grant. How many grants are available, and what is the period of time in order to apply for those?
Yeah, so we have, like you said, you can apply for up to $5,000 of support if you meet the eligibility requirements. And we have the grant open until December 18th for applications. We have a little over $100,000 to give through this program. So we expect to award between 20 and 40 grants, depending on the level people ask for in their applications.
Okay, and lastly, an information session coming up, I believe, tomorrow. Tell us where and when in case anyone wants to go.
Yeah, thank you. So tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we have an online information session, so it'll be easy to access. I'll go over some of the rules of the program. Anybody's welcome to attend, and if you can't attend, we will post the recording of it online on the MDA's website.
Okay, Emily Toner with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture Grants Specialist. Thank you so much for the insight here as we see so many of these small growers certainly selling their products right in the communities where they live. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. We're heading towards a quarter after the hour, and we'll be getting some insight into immigration enforcement operations coming up next with another interview with somebody that used to work for ICE, the Department of Homeland Security, and their thoughts on what they've been seeing of late. You're watching All Day on Fox 9. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All Day. As we've seen, and we just covered a few minutes ago in the wake of what happened yesterday in St. Paul, where community questioned what immigration enforcement action was happening there, who was involved, what they were doing. A lot of questions about how immigration agents are operating in communities. A lot of concern about what appears to be a level of secrecy here. You're wearing masks. Maybe the identification lacks a little bit. There's some, but not all. Local officials saying they don't get a heads up that anything is coming. Is this new? Has it always been this way? To discuss that and more is Jim Hayes, a former ICE and Homeland Security agent of 20 years, the bulk of that with ICE in New York and Los Angeles. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here.
What has changed? You've been retired for some time, but spent many years in this arena. What has changed in what you've seen with these immigration enforcement actions of late compared to what you witnessed when you were involved in them directly?
We bring up the masks and the identification, and I think one of the things that's changed is the opposition to immigration enforcement in this country. It has become very much organized, and in such a way that there are people that are and organizations that are committed to identifying these agents who are, again, doing their jobs. They're doing the work that Congress has said years ago should be done. And so they see this as a means to protect themselves, not as a means to obscure who they are or not because they're hiding what they're doing. They're obviously out in public taking these measures. But I read constantly, and this is an important point, is that people say that this administration has changed the game. They've changed the tactics. And I think it's important to remember that they haven't. What's gone on here is between the administrations of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, even to a large degree in the first Trump administration, immigration enforcement was largely non-existent. These were the most welcoming administrations for foreign nationals, particularly the Biden administration, where they made it so that you could schedule your appointment to enter the U.S. and claim asylum on an app. So I think that the change here in terms of the demeanor and the appearance of the agents is more of a protective mechanism. And look, nobody likes it. Nobody likes the fact that these agents have to do that, feel that they have to do that. But also, they're out in public. They don't have the ability or the luxury of doing their job in an office protected by security. They have to go out. They're taking risks of their lives. And when people show up to protest and enforcement action, it just makes all of those things that much more difficult.
So have you seen this then, where you say that there's been more of an effort to identify the agents involved and then maybe use that identification to have some sort of, I don't know, would you say harassment? I mean, what happens when people try to identify those that they can?
Well, it's gone beyond harassment. It's gone to people showing up at the homes of the head of the agency right now, at the head of the border czar over the course of the earlier months of this administration, and publicizing the names, the addresses, phone numbers in instances, personal information when they can get it on the internet, so that other people who are opposed to immigration enforcement can go ahead and take that and really do whatever they want with it. So that's a significant concern. And look, people have the right in this country. It's one of the great things about America to disagree, to not believe in these laws. There's ways to handle that other than trying to harm or put in harm's way the people who are hired by the government to carry out the laws enacted by Congress.
Okay, so the wearing of masks then is a bit of a change, but it's in reaction to a change of the community response to identifying the agents. Okay.
Absolutely. Definitely a change from again, when I was in and when I was managing offices, we didn't have the threats of not just individuals who were organized with groups that are opposed to immigration enforcement, but also elected officials. Elected officials who are putting out this information of here are the addresses, here are the names of ICE agents in particular offices. So they've taken these measures, and I don't think there's anybody who likes it. There's nobody who wants it to be permanent. I wish there was a better solution to it than that.
Okay, and you hear complaints too from mayors, council members, et cetera, that they didn't know that any of these operations are going to happen in their city. Now, in a lot of police departments, just sort of by policy or by statute, don't partake or don't do any immigration enforcement. So then, is it always been normal that ICE in turn does not inform those departments when an operation is planned?
So in this instance, my understanding is that this was a federal criminal search warrant, and ideally you'd love to be able to tell local law enforcement. You'd love to be able to communicate with select local political leaders that, hey, we have an investigation, here's something sensitive, here's some criminal activity that we believe is going on. The issue is, and it's the polarization of the immigration issue. Of course, ICE, its investigative arm, Homeland Security Investigations, they're responsible for the enforcement and the investigation of more than 400 different federal statutes, 390 of those having nothing to do with immigration. But because it's linked to the ICE name, those elected officials in many instances have gone about and they've informed the community, they've informed other members of the public, and that creates a dangerous situation for agents. It creates a dangerous situation for the people who are the subjects of the investigation. And just if you look at some of the photos from this investigation, there were DEA agents out there. I believe there were some FBI agents out there. So this is a multi-jurisdictional criminal investigation. We don't have a lot of details on that because that's governed by grand jury proceedings in the prosecutor's office. And so one of the questions that I have, quite honestly, is, was there some type of information that was spread? Because this is not something that's going to be made public that you're conducting a federal criminal search warrant, and this is 9 a.m. and protesters are out there. So I wonder about operational security in the courthouse, in and around the area, to where people knew that this activity that was going to take place was taking place.
Well, I do know that what I saw on social media platforms is that there were community members who saw them gathering at a nearby park, staging essentially to do this, and from there the word spread quickly, and maybe potentially they just followed them to where they were. And that's what it seems to be. Those are very valid questions that you brought up, but from everything that I've seen, it appears to be simply what somebody saw and then spread the word quickly. In the case, and yes, I did see DEA, FBI, etc. Out there. And so again, we're told that this is a criminal investigation. I understand that you cannot reveal too much about that. You don't want to jeopardize the investigation, but is there a need to reveal some more information to let the public know that this is a criminal investigation beyond just saying that there more context to it to try to sort of, I guess, calm fears or put out some fires?
Well, and I think that's the difficult balance that this agency finds itself in, is that, let's say this investigation, we don't know, but let's say it has nothing to do with immigration. Let's say it's a drug investigation, or it's a cross-border counterfeit merchandise investigation, right? People are already assuming the worst. They're already assuming and making the normal complaints that are made by organized groups that are against immigration, that this is unlawful, this is unnecessary, all these different things. Many times, these investigations, when you conduct a search warrant, you're looking to obviously identify and collect evidence. You want to identify and collect perhaps statements from people who have information about a criminal ring that's operating. And there are other targets. So there may be other locations. There may be leaders of organized criminal rings that they're trying to get information and access to. And unfortunately, by publicizing that information, that just allows those people who may be targets of your investigation to get rid of evidence, to leave the jurisdiction, to leave the country. So in order to have success in these investigations, you do have to have a veil of secrecy. You do have to limit what you're putting out there to the public. And that's particularly true now when everything involving ICE, thanks to a lot of factors that have nothing to do with the agency or the people, the men and women who are in the agency, is so polarized that anything they do is going to be attacked, regardless of how good it is, regardless of the positive things that it brings to the community. It's just the way it is right now. So I do think that there has to be a veil of secrecy, particularly in criminal investigations, where the race is on to get enough information and evidence to be able to secure indictments and convictions.
Yeah, I've seen this in other federal investigations, as you mentioned, where there are simultaneous search warrants being served at multiple locations at the same time to preserve that surprise so that nobody gets tipped off. And so some of these may fall into that sort of investigation. I guess I'm just wondering, what more information can you reveal to try to add some clarity without jeopardizing the investigation? I mean, as you mentioned, that's a tightrope you walk, but I mean, is it possible to just say a little bit more so it doesn't seem like there's this veil of secrecy to the public?
It honestly depends on the facts of each case, right? And I'm not privy to the facts of this case. We're not privy to the facts of this case. What I do know is that when this case does come to a conclusion, meaning when they've identified all the people that they are targeting, when they've identified all the evidence to make decisions about who they should target or where they will go and what they will target, one of the things that this administration has done, and honestly all administrations have done this with respect to criminal investigations generally conducted by federal law enforcement agencies, is they will release that information to the public. There will be court filings. There will be affidavits that are filled out by Homeland Security agents, by DEA agents, by agents from other agencies that will explicitly lay out the steps that investigators took, the information they collected, and why they believe that the charges that they are filing are accurate and necessary. And it may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, but at some point there will be more information released about these investigations.
Okay, and then one more thing I want to ask you about. The Trump administration from the beginning has sort of been very clear that they want to target violent criminals who are in the country illegally or don't have legal status here. You hear reports from other raids where people are saying these aren't violent criminals, that they've been rounding up. I mean, what have you been seeing in terms of who these immigration enforcement actions have been targeting?
Well, when you look at the situation here, right, federal criminal search warrant, obviously they're targeting criminal activity. That's something that generally people agree with. When you look at a lot of the other actions and operations throughout the country, just in Texas last week, they arrested 135 people, many of those sexual predators. The reality of the fact is they are going after criminals. But this administration has also made the point that because of lax immigration enforcement under the last administration, they feel that it's necessary to go ahead and widen that net. And so people who are particularly recent illegal entrants into the United States are going to face additional scrutiny right now as they're conducting their operations to identify criminals and identify criminal rings. They're not going to turn and look the other way when they encounter people who just came into the country illegally but have no other convictions.
Okay. Well, thanks for providing your insight on this. I mean, many years with immigration and customs enforcement, and retired from that, but which is why you're able to speak about it without jeopardizing anything. But your context is certainly valuable. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, there you go. Providing some context into some of these immigration enforcement actions. Certainly yesterday in St. Paul, a federal search warrant. This is similar to what we saw in Minneapolis earlier this year on Lake Street, which was perceived initially as a purely immigration enforcement action, but it was a federal search warrant involving a drug investigation, and then the FBI and others revealed that this was part of certainly a massive drug, I believe it was a methamphetamine operation where they got a bunch of evidence there. So again, we're waiting for more information to shed any light onto what this criminal investigation was that resulted in this search warrant yesterday in St. Paul, and then of course leading to a clash, as it were, with people who showed up to object to what was happening there. We're going to take a quick break here. We got another conversation coming up with the Bloomington Police Chief, Booker T. Hodges, about a number of things. One was what he talked about yesterday with a sex offender sting that he conducted. Some other topics here as somebody who's not shy to talk to the media with a little bit of his own personal flair. We're going to take a breather right now with some serenity at Lake Waconia. Again, back with the Bloomington Police Chief in just a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back to All Day. Joining us now, Bloomington Police Chief Booker Hodges. I know it's Booker T. Hodges, Do you prefer using the T?
Oh, no, just
or
Booker.
not?
Booker's cool.
Booker's fine. Thanks for coming in here. Appreciate it. Yesterday you had a news conference, again, talking about Operation Creep. The arrest of 16 individuals in an undercover sex sting. Is this similar to the effort from earlier this year that we covered extensively too, with the arrest at that point of what was a sitting state senator? Is this part of that ongoing operation? Is this something different?
No, it's the same deal. We'll keep running these operations, essentially trying to protect our kids from people who want to go out here and do stuff to them that we can't allow to have happen. So it's the same type of operation that we do.
Yeah, and the operation is interesting because, people know that this might be happening in where you have undercover officers presenting themselves very clearly as 17, even though they're not. But I mean, they're identifying themselves as I'm 17 years old. And I think some of the folks maybe contest, well, they didn't look 17 or et cetera. But I mean, this is part of the approach, is to very clearly make that part of that conversation.
Yeah, and these folks know what they're doing. I mean, every single one of them is told it's a 17-year-old person that they're coming after. And in a lot of cases, these folks will admit that they know it's wrong. They don't want to get caught, so they know what they're doing when they come looking for a 17-year-old kid.
And 16 people in this recent, including some an employee of, I believe, a civilian employee of Homeland Security and somebody with Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. You see kind of can you describe, I mean, the folks that you're arresting kind of run the gamut across society?
Yeah, it's all walks, unfortunately, of human society. So yeah, I don't understand it, and I guess if I understand it, I'd have to quit, but I don't get it, man. I don't.
And you used, you called it Operation Creep.
Yeah.
You played then a snippet from the Radiohead song, I'm a Creep.
Yeah.
You're known for your kind of colorful flair in news conferences, where you hold up jumpsuits, etc. You ever get any pushback from anybody, whether you work with or in the city, other police departments, saying, hey, Booker, maybe tone it down a little bit, maybe that was a little too much?
No, I haven't. I'm pretty sure there's some people out there that don't like it, but the good thing about it is, you don't like it, just don't watch it. I mean, that's my feeling for it. And for me, I'd rather have people pay attention to something versus just click through it and not go about their day without actually paying attention to it. So
yeah, what gave you the idea when you introduced those sort of elements? I mean, I think of a news conference where I was at with you recently, where it was around Christmas time, and you said, they're not wearing a Santa suit, they're going to be wearing orange, and I mean, again, it is very attention-getting, entertaining, I guess. Why?
So I think it's so people pay attention to it, right? And I still like to have fun too.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, a lot of times for me, it ultimately comes down to when you watch a lot of these government or police press conferences, it's boring. It's talking about language that people don't understand.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't really connect with the community as opposed to just talking straight talk, right? And I think talking straight talk and adding a little bit of attention-getting things in there, I think really helps connect with folks.
Have you heard feedback from people then that say, hey, that does help?
Yeah, all the time. All the time people walk up to me and they're glad we're doing it. They're glad that they feel like they know what's going on, and it's good to hear somebody actually talking in plain talk versus law enforcement jargon. And I say all the time, I got a doctorate degree. That doesn't make me smarter than anybody else. So, but if I needed to, I could, use vernacular or be very verbose and loquacious if I wanted to. But I just choose to talk like I normally talk.
Anything else you want to add about Operation Creep before we move on to another subject?
Yeah, I just think you got to watch your kids out there, and if you look at a lot of these videos, when you watch, and that's why we put the drone footage out there, these are grown people that are showing up in the middle of the day believing they're going to have sex with a 17-year-old kid. I mean, just think about that. For those of you who got kids out there, you're gone at work or wherever, and these dudes are going to show up to your house to have sex with your kid. It's unbelievable. So watch your kids. online.
You've had partners in some of the previous things where other groups work with you in this one as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we just had BCA, Richfield Police Department, Roseville, and the airport. I don't want to forget anybody, but in Eden Prairie, yes, that's who all worked with us on this one.
Okay. Recently, and I watched your YouTube video of this, you know, you're very trying to approach people, trying to be transparent, clarity about your visit to the southern border and what you saw there in terms of the fence, in terms of we saw a tunnel, etc. But then people wonder, why is the police chief from Bloomington, Minnesota going to the southern border? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I went down as part of North Central HIDA, which is Minnesota and Wisconsin.
HIDA?
Yes, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Initiative.
Okay.
So and it wasn't just me. We had a bunch of police chiefs and a bunch of sheriffs that went down to visit the border and connect with the HIDA down there in San Diego.
But again, why do police chiefs from this region? How does that? What's the purpose there professionally for you then to visit the other side of the country? How does that help you do your work here?
Oh, 100%. So we do a lot of work with the airport here, and we have a lot of drug trafficking and human trafficking activity that comes from the southwest border that comes directly to Minnesota. So for us to look at the tactics that these people are using, so like looking at the vehicle scanners they use to do the x-rays, to see the types of tactics that they're using to transport drugs and people, it was a very valuable trip for all of us to go down there. And I think the public doesn't see a lot of the interconnectivity between certain parts of the country and Minnesota, but we are a hub here, and I think it's been publicly stated that our airport has more cash leaving MSP a day than any other airport in the country.
Really?
Yep.
I know part of your trip, I mean, you said you showed your vision of, you know, what you could see of the wall, the border wall. You did explicitly state that this is about looking at drug trafficking and human trafficking. You know, it wasn't necessarily about illegal immigration, but it's the criminal components of that.
Yes.
First of all, we'll talk about the wall, and you pointed out that there is a freeway being built right on the other side of the wall, and your questions about, wow, what is that going to do in terms of making it easier to get over that wall? What you see?
Yeah, so it was, and again, I said about the geopolitical politics, actually see that up front, right? So, you know, you hear locally, we're building this big wall. Okay, well, what does that mean? You know, what is that going to do? And when you go down there and you see that the government of Mexico is building this highway right along the wall, it's like, okay, right? You've accomplished the goal of not allowing people to, in theory, come through there, which is going to lessen the amount of human trafficking and drug trafficking. But the ingenuity of building, they're a sovereign nation too, right? So they get to build this.
They can do what they want.
So they're building a highway that goes right along the wall.
And your immediate question was, why?
Yeah.
Why? You also showed some, I believe it was some vehicles, and then there was a manhole cover on the U.S. side of the border, which looks like a typical sewer manhole, etc., but then went right to a tunnel.
Yeah.
What did you? How big of a tunnel? What did you see there?
So you went down, and the sophistication of these people to dig these underground tunnels, I think a lot of times we don't see in Minnesota. So you go in and it's a tunnel that goes, it's probably, football field's length from the American side to the Mexican side of the border, and it had electricity in it. So,
really?
You could drive across, not drive across, but they could run a cart or people could crawl through it.
Wow.
Yeah. No, and that's, I think, we don't make these drugs in Minnesota, right? And I think that's my message and why we went down there as the HIDA. We don't make these drugs in Minnesota. They're getting here somehow. So what do we need to do to continue to try to stop that?
And so your visit to the southern border is specifically to look at the ways that these drugs are being trafficked into the U.S. and ultimately winding up here.
Yes.
In your jurisdiction.
And the tactics they're using to detect them. And I'm not going to get into all the tactics that they use to detect drugs that are transported, but I did put a semi-trailer on there. And how many semis do you see rolling down the street here in Minnesota? On
quite a few.
Yeah,
I mean, all over the place.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. You have taken there was a social media break a little time off. Which begs the question, well, what, just to detoxify out of the mind, or what? Because you're very active in your department, and is part of that need to communicate, to be transparent, and to plain speak, to, you know, very much, why take a break?
So, those of us in law enforcement, we have to deal with the aftermath of a lot of things that takes place on social media.
Yeah.
So, you know, urban street violence, right? If you look at a lot of these kids, they're out here in our streets in Minnesota killing each other, starts on social media, right? The Annunciation shooting, where the suspect's manifesto was plastered all over the internet. And could you imagine just being one of those parents who your kid just got killed, and you get to watch the person that killed them, their whole, exactly what they wanted to have happen.
It shows up very quickly, very quickly.
And then, you know, Charlie Kirk, you know, getting assassinated and just playing over and over again. So it's like, okay, we need to take a step back here for like 30 days, take a break. And then also, you know, it shows that people are a lot more happy when they're not on social media versus when they are. So let's just take a step back for 30 days and, you know, let's go be with your family for a little bit. And that's the message I gave to the department too, and the message that I've done for myself too. And it's just like, we have to, I get free speech, right? I get it, you know, it's the United States of America, but we have to have some decency when we're not putting this stuff on.
Well, with any tool, and social media is a tool, there's good and bad. I mean, there's some very positive things that can happen, but with that comes a lot of pretty negative things that can happen. And mental health concerns from what you see.
Mental health, I mean, you know, the generations that have grown up strictly using social media, you can see there's a distinct difference between their mental health and those of us that, you know, I'd say the 2-foot generation, 1 foot in digital, 1 foot in analog. There's a distinct difference there, and a lot of that can be attributed to social media. And, you know, just think about what it's doing to this country. It's tearing us apart, in my opinion. And even, you know, look in the media business with you all, right? I asked the question, why even do sweeps weeks anymore when you got social media out there, right? And how it's affected, you know, you guys' job too, because it's unregulated.
There's a lot of, again, a lot of components to that social media where, you know, again, there's so many things that can be accomplished. It allows you to speak directly to people instead of, you know, hoping that we attend a news conference. But then it can be misused in so many ways as well. And that's a problem that who knows what the solution for that will be. All right, anything else going on in the city of Bloomington you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, we're doing pretty good. Crime is low. Our citizens are doing good.
So the numbers, the statistics are showing a drop?
Yeah, we're down 12% from last year, and last year was low. So if it holds, and I realize saying crime is low as the chief, if you just got robbed or something, you're like, I don't care what you say. So I acknowledge that part, but crime is down in our city.
That's good. What do you attribute that to, besides your good police work?
No, you know, the citizens, right? I mean, I think ultimately when the citizens decide, you know, they're going to follow the law, rules, and regulations, this is what you get. Because we deter crime. We do not prevent it, right? And I know chiefs are going to get mad at me for saying that. We deter it. We don't prevent it. When people decide that they're going to follow the laws, this is what you get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Booker, always good to see you.
You too, man.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you coming in here. Hopefully, you know, you're close by. All right. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 9 all day. And Chief Booker Hodge, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We will be right back after this. Welcome back to Fox 9 All Day. With joining us is Amber and the maestro, Ryan Rablin in the middle. Amber, I still haven't come up with a really good nickname for you.
You know, it happens. It happens.
I know. I'll work on that.
I don't think I've had a good nickname in my entire life, honestly.
Yeah, I'll find something. Big news for baseball fans, which is what brings Ryan in here. Athletic reporter Andrew Marchland talking about new Major League Baseball TV deals being announced today. What do we know?
Yeah, so Major League Baseball is going to make this official later today or tomorrow, but the New York Times, The Athletic, has done some good reporting on what we can expect. The big national headline is NBC takes over for ESPN for Sunday Night Baseball, so that's the big kind of national. But Twins fans want to know, where can they watch their games? And we went through this last year with some uncertainty. We know that Major League Baseball controls the rights, the broadcast rights for the Twins. And now, as part of this new deal, ESPN has acquired those rights. So you say, are the Twins moving to ESPN? No, not as of yet. I reached out to the Twins, and they have said that as far as how you watched games last year, that will remain the same this year. So if you use the Twins TV app, or if you watched it through a cable provider, that will remain unchanged. So I think that's good news for Twins fans who are still kind of dealing with some uncertainty over how the broadcast deal worked last year. So as far as 2026 goes, it will remain unchanged for Twins games.
Well, the question here is if ESPN has acquired the rights, but it stays the same. And one of the issues here when Twins TV launched is, Twins TV is now available. I have DirecTV. It's available on cable. I know the Twins were concerned about saturation. A lot of people couldn't watch their games when it was on what is now FanDuel. And so this made it more available. But nobody was paying them because MLB was producing it. Nobody was paying them for the rights, and their revenue dropped, and that affected a number of things because they're taking in less money. So this could potentially change that without changing anything for the viewer. Maybe?
Potentially. It's unclear kind of the money behind the scenes and what ESPN is getting and how that all plays out. But I think basically what fans want to know is, where can I watch the Twins? And if you still want to just pay for the Twins through Twins TV, I think it was $20 a month or something along $80 for the year, something along those lines, you'll be able to still do that. Will they pop up someday on the ESPN platform? Perhaps, but as far as we know, not quite yet. Does that help, Rob, or does that make it more confusing?
Yeah, I suppose if they're getting money from ESPN and it shows up on the ESPN Plus app, which is where you can find, I know for a hockey fan, it's like every hockey game is on there. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that for ESPN, that's their ultimate goal, right? They want all the sports, or as much of the sports as they can, to live on their platform. They want that being kind of a one-stop destination for sports fans.
Okay. Amber, any thoughts on this, or are you just like, Amber, whatever?
Yeah. When I top-lined Ryan about this, top-lining is like our little messaging thing. I was like, hey, can you give me the deets on this MLB TV stuff? And he goes, I think I'm the best person to talk about this. And I said, you are correct. Let's get you with the show, because it sure ain't me. Ryan, I have to ask, remind me, Ryan's our baseball extraordinaire, right? He's visited like every stadium ever. Almost, right? Are we still shy a couple?
Still got two left.
Okay,
two left,
where?
yep. I need to go to Philadelphia, and I need to go back to Texas because they've gotten a new ballpark since.
All right. So if people are wondering why the heck Ryan's our guide, this is why. This is what he lives and breathes.
It's kind of my life, outside of all day, of course.
No, well, yeah,
of course.
Outside of that.
Yeah.
We were able to go inside the Twins TV production this summer to show, and just on a what you would call a run-of-the-mill, weekday game. It's still very impressive at what all goes into bringing that baseball game to air.
Yeah, an incredible amount, and the Twins TV team with Corey Provis and company, they do a great job of bringing those games. And Twins Tuesday, we still had those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Those were fun. Those were fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have more of those to come. A lot more
All right,
of those.
guys, we're almost out of time. One other quick sports-related story I wanted to make sure we squeeze in here. Jesse Diggins is retiring after this next season, so this is big, big news. One of the most decorated cross-country skiers in history. Just huge. So an end of a true era here. Three-time Olympic gold medal winner, right? I believe.
Yeah, I pulled up the stats here, and I was trying to advance to them.
I think you wrote
here it
3
is.
Olympic medals. I don't know if they're all gold, but I'm just going to assume they are. 8 World Championships, 29 World Cup wins, 79 World Cup podiums. So, she's got the bling.
the most decorated American cross-country skier in history.
Yeah.
And certainly one of Minnesota's most accomplished athletes, and we've had a number of them, but she's done, and her messages too about dealing with, mental health and overcoming adversity, etc., have been remarkable. So she said, put on the glitter for one more season. She likes to put glitter on to remind herself to keep it fun. So one more season of digging. She's 34 now, I believe it is.
Well, congratulations to her on an incredible career so far, and maybe we'll see some more bling added to her roster after this year, right?
I would hope so. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, you don't want to retire. Yeah.
All right, guys, we're about out of time. I want to squeeze in, Leo, we can take this VO here. Cool event this morning, gift wrapping with the Salvation Army. These gifts go to the children of incarcerated parents. It's called the Toy Lift program. So volunteers today wrapping up gifts. If you want to donate, you can drop off toys at the Salvation Army in Roseville or really any Sal Army across the Twin Cities during business hours. Rob, Ryan, we're back tomorrow. Rob, maybe we won't outnumber you tomorrow.
I don't mind. The more the merrier, right?
Right. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day.